Welcome back to our IRHSP series. Thank you for being so patient with me. I have been a little behind schedule here, so I apologize for that. However, I am back and I'm excited to get going on this little peanut. You can see where we've been and where we're gonna go. First of all, I want to thank IRHSPs for sponsoring today's video, and for Esther with all her gracious support and help that she has given us, and I'm really excited to see what's to come. All right, so today we are going to do some base blushing. You can see that this little peanut is already getting some really nice coloring going. We did very soft, subtle veining in there, so you can see that coming through, which is going to really pop when we get a couple more layers put down. For those of you that are trying to catch up, we've got our color map here. You can see what we've done. We've done some red texture, we've done some yellow model, we've done a purple texture, kind of a magenta model and a blue model and some blue undertones. We did another color or shade of purple and then a red violet of texture, and then we did our veining. Today we're going to move on to that blushing, and I wanted to show you IRHSP's other color, and this one is the crimson. This is a perfect balance of the red violet. I really like this. This is just a beautiful color. Perfect for doing some blushing. So we're going to play with this color today. When we're doing our blushing, we are going to use our liquid thin, where we were doing a little bit of other techniques or more of a combination of the liquid thin with a thinner. This one, I'm going to do just the liquid thin. And to refresh your memory, when we're mixing liquid thin, less is more. You want to use virtually equal parts. All right. We're going to get out our squeegee, which if you guys haven't seen, these are amazing tools. They're easy to pick up your paint and mix with. I am only going to use, it's very, very small amount. You can kind of see compared to my finger just how much we're using. Because this is our base blushing, we are not going to do really bold blushing. We want to just use a tiny, tiny bit. With our liquid thin, because we're doing more of this base blushing and not our true blushing, I'm going to have a slightly more than a 1-to-1 ratio. So I'm almost going to do 2-to-1 ratio. So a couple drops of your liquid thin to 1 dot of your blush. Mix that up. See how nice that blushing is? This is a nice translucent color. You're going to get that soft pink color. It's going to be closer to the red violet, so it's nice and cool. I think I got a little bit on my squeegee here. Now you don't need much for this because we're going to be doing it in a different manner, and we're doing just our base. We're going to just do soft blushing. With that, I'm going to use this lovely tool. This one is a 3/4 inch pouncer. I will pluck out the ends to create a textured pouncer, but I like using these because they're round, they're compact, and they're easy to control. All right, we're going to pick up our color and tap that onto your sponge. Getting that color just to sit on the surface of the sponge. You don't need to have an excessive amount. And then we're going to focus on starting with the T-zone, which is right up above your forehead area and then down in through the bridge of the nose. If you turn your head to the side, I don't worry about blushing on the top of the head. You can see where the crown starts curving. You want it basically on the face of that curve. So we're going to go across and do a pounce on that. This is just a translucent light layer. You don't want it to be real bold yet. When I'm doing my blushing, I will do it in stages. So I will have a base layer, a build layer, and then I'll have a final layer. With this one, I am starting our base layer and working my way around. I brought it down into the bridge of the nose, and I'm gonna go almost on the eyebrow a little bit. What that does, it create a stork bite, and I got a little much on the bridge, so I'm gonna take my dry brush and I'm gonna pounce that out just a tad. And you can see how nicely it creates that texture, but it's just barely there, creating that soft base layer for blushing. I'm going to continue picking up my pigment and applying that onto my sponge as need be. Is this the only way to apply your base blushing? No, I will sometimes apply it with a mop brush, but usually I will do that towards the final layers of blushing, where when I'm starting, I use more of a textured sponge. And then we're going to move on to the chin. So imagine this T right through here, across the forehead and down through the nose, down through the chin, so right underneath that fold of the neck. And for the lip, I'm going to pick up a little bit with my round brush, and I'm going to go right in the center of that nose and underneath the nose. This is where I'm hitting the little details as I go. So you're taking your round brush and you're going to work from the inside bottom of the nostril out and around. You don't want it too dark, like up through the top of the crease and down around. So I usually will bring my brush around that direction and draw it out to the sides. This is where it's kind of fun, because you can decide whether or not you want to have a little bit more of a pink nose, or if you want to have a little bit more of a yellow tone to it. I like little pink noses. I like the nostrils a little bit more pink, but I'm not going to do it real crazy. I'm just going to do the edges just as a starting point. The other thing to keep in mind is if you apply your pigment too strong initially, just take a dry brush and blend out the edges of that blushing ever so slightly, and that will soften it up. Now we're going to move on with the cheek. You're basically going to go underneath that jawbone, up around towards the ear, and down towards the chin. I will start usually at the bottom, working my way up, and I have it go right in front of the ear, joining that T portion of the blushing that we had already put down. That's so cute. I love that. I will show you. This is where we're going to start doing our base on our flange as well. And I'll show you what that means in a minute here. We're going to do the opposite side, right underneath the cheekbone. Draw it up. Remember, this is going to be very, very translucent. It's not going to look real strong initially because we want it to be just a base. Think of it as another layer of texture, but you're doing it in selective areas. So that way, when you're putting down your other colors, it's going to harmonize everything, and it's going to accentuate your areas that you want to see more color and areas where you don't want to see as much color. Okay, bringing that around. And the nice thing I like about this is that it almost creates a stork bite effect. The more pressure you put down, the more pigment it's going to release, and it's going to have more of that blotchiness. So oftentimes I'll do that right in the bridge of the nose area. I oftentimes see babies that have that stork bite right in through the eyes, right up through here. It's entirely up to you what you want to do, but I favor that. It's just one of my spots I like. All right, now we're going to pick up our round brush, and we're going to do a little bit on the upper lip, but we're going to do like a tapping. And I'm going to go above the upper lip, not on the line, because we want to have that line be a little bit more lighter. Think of it as the areas you want to see more raised. You want more of a lighter or yellower undertone to it. And the areas where you want to have more depth is going to be a little bit darker. Now, you don't have to do this all the time. If you want to do this, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. And I'm going to draw this blush down towards the corner of the mouth. That is looking so cute. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit more of our blush. We're going to hit the very edge of the lid of the eye, doing both the top and the bottom. Picking up our round brush, doing it the same on the other side. I'm basically working it into the crease, but also just past the crease. Another key area that I like to do too is I like to do a little bit on the eyebrow. To me, when babies kind of scrunch up their face, they get red eyebrows in through there. I just think that's so cute. So I'm gonna hit that a little bit, just a tiny bit. This is our base. I'm gonna blend this out a little bit on the upper lip. All right, that looks good. The next area you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna work on the flange, and I want a bigger round brush for this. So this is where I'm gonna use a number 12. I say this is about a 1/4 inch round. This is where you're gonna pick up your pigment and you're gonna apply it on the underside of the flange going towards the face. So that way you're getting the edge and that color is gonna be worked in really good. Going around the entire head. Think of it as all of those areas where the blood will pool when you see creases, oftentimes right on the center portion between the creases, the blood kind of squeezes, and so you'll see a little bit more pink through there. And on the edge, just above the crease and below the crease, it's a little bit more yellow. So I will focus on my blushing right in the middle of those two. Tapping my way around. Emphasizing that edge, turning the head. So you're working your brush from the flange towards the top of the head, so that way you're hitting the under portion of the flange and the actual corner or edge of the neck. The other areas I will hit just above the crease on the bottom of the neck here. Doing this tapping motion, drawing it out, and then I will go a little bit behind the ear and above. There we go. Behind the ear, drawing that up, round. Okay, we're gonna let that sit. We're gonna move on to the arms and the legs. When we get done with this base layer, you're gonna go ahead and you're going to preheat your oven to 265 degrees. You're gonna bake that for 10 minutes. With the IRHSP, it is recommended 9 to 10 minutes. I always just do 10 minutes, and make sure you have an oven thermometer and you're watching your oven closely, because I know my ovens fluctuate in temperature. We're gonna grab our legs. With the legs and the arms, we're gonna focus on using our round brush, but I will use our pouncer in the larger areas and then focus on using our small round brushes in those smaller areas. I'm gonna start with the toes though. I like to work from the bottom up. That way I can hang on to the limb a little easier. I've already got a little bit on there, but we're gonna accentuate that. So you're almost painting it. You're not really pouncing it on the bottoms of the toes, the bottom of the feet, just in those folds, not in the crease and not the whole thing. Sometimes I will have to switch it out for a smaller brush, like something like this, just so I can get into those areas a little easier. This is a little bit more tedious. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I like to emphasize the folds of the feet. I'm gonna go in through here, just hit the edge, drawing that out towards the top of the foot. Then I'm gonna work on the side, doing this tapping motion, drawing it up towards the top of the foot, getting those wrinkles. It's almost creating a little bit of a line that gets blended into the top of the foot. I'm gonna go over that joint where the knuckle is, side of the toes, and right on the pinky. The pinky I usually do almost the whole pinky. Okay, bringing that up. Just above the arch of the foot, underneath the heel, towards the top ankle. That looks good. I'm gonna hit the tops of the toes. I already got a little bit on here. Now here is the thing with your toes. I have seen people do toes where there's more blushing on the knuckle of the toe when it's bent, but I personally like the knuckle to be a little bit more yellow because that's going to show more of the cartilage where the blood is being pressed out towards the top of the knuckle and below the knuckle. So I will go right on the tops of the toes right through here, tapping that in there. And tap, tap, tap. Go just on the top of the nail bed. So basically the tips of the toes, the top of the nail beds, and the top of the toes themselves. I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to tap just at the top of the foot, not on the crease, not in the crease, just on the top. Bringing that around. I'm going to switch it out for a larger brush. Now this one has a lot of folds, so you can do as much or as little as you want. I like to have a lot of detail, so I will go in between those folds. And again, this is just a base layer, so it's going to be almost like a texture, but it's going to have more of a focus in limited areas, not in everything or on everything. Go through here. I'm going to turn it over. You can see the crease here and the crease here. I'm going to go just above that. Keep my hand out of the way. Go just above this crease right through here as well. It almost looks like the whole foot is getting blushed, and essentially it is in a certain way, but like I said, it's just selective areas. And we're going to go in between the creases through here, right on the ankle and above the ankle bone. There's another crease through here. I'm going to tap this out just a little bit through here. And I'm just going to do a tiny bit above that crease. There we go. That's looking good. Go the back of the ankle through here. I'm going to do a little bit on this area, on the back of the foot here. Okay. All right, that looks good. Now I'm going to switch over to my pouncer, picking out my color, applying that to our pouncer. I'm going to do this rocking motion just a little bit. I'm going to draw it down the shin a little bit. That looks so cute. Picking up a little bit more pigment, turning that foot over. I'm going to hit the heel. We applied our pigment to our sponge, and we're going to go the back of the leg behind the knee, drawing that up and over. Okay. That's okay, that looks good. Getting more of our pigment. Go above the crease behind the leg, right through here. Drawing that towards the knee. Turn that leg over. That's looking really cute. Same thing with the flange on the leg. You're going to pick up your pigment using your round brush and tap that on that edge of the flange on the bottom portion going towards the limb. That way it'll help make sure you've got nice pigment around that edge. You want it to have that pink tone. I'm going to switch out to a little bigger round brush just for the larger areas of the limb. Tap, tap, tap. Almost done with this leg. Working ourselves all the way around the limb. Careful not to hit the top of the foot on the counter while we're painting the other portions. And I will usually take my pigment after I do the flange. I will work it down the thigh a little bit. And right in through here. Okay, a little bit more here and then we're good. That is about the gist of the blushing that I will do for a base on the leg. That looks good. Bring this down a little bit through here. Okay, so we have our leg done. It's very, very cute. I like it a lot. You'll go ahead and finish the other leg on your own. Moving on to the arm. This one, you're gonna want a little bit more of a smaller round brush. Again, you're going to apply that color in a sweeping motion, hitting the tip, that first area, the pad of the fingers, and drawing it up above the fingernail itself. Why I started on this finger, I don't know, I just did. Hit the edge, to the bottom, working myself around. I leave the dowel in the arm when I'm doing the details if the flange is a little bit smaller, so that way I can hang on to the limb a little easier. All right, for this one, you're gonna take your blushing and you're gonna again do in between the creases lightly. We still wanna see a little bit of that yellow, but we want to soften it by adding a little bit of blushing underneath and between the creases, just a tiny bit. Tap, 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 get in there. If you're working on a different kit that has bent fingers, get in the inside portion of the fingers so that you can wrap it around. Make sure you're not ending your pigment or your paint on the bottom and just the top, so then you have a white line. You want to make sure that you're working that color all the way around the finger. And if we get a little bit too much, we'll just grab our dry brush and tap that out a little bit. For the tops of the hands, I'm going to start at the bottom, doing a little tapping with our color, just a little bit, and then I'm going to work that out, making sure I'm getting between the fingers, and I'm going to bring that down a little bit. Take my dry brush and just lightly press that out a little bit. I'm going to switch it to a smaller brush so we can get in the smaller areas. I'm going to hit just a little bit between the creases through here and on thumb. So between the creases through here, underneath the knuckle here and above that knuckle, lightly drawing it up and around the top of the finger. If the finger is straight, that's where I might focus a little bit more of that red towards the knuckle, where if the fingers are bent, I will have it a little bit more yellow. So you can just see as I'm bending my fingers how the cartilage is going to press that blood out to the edges, and this portion is going to have a little bit more of that yellow tone, where the tops, the pads of the fingers are going to be a little bit more red. But as I straighten it, that blood doesn't pool there, it's more a little bit closer to the knuckle. Okay. Picking up a little bit more pigment, there are some creases on the wrist that are right through here and here. I'm going to hit those areas very lightly. This is one of those things that you're going to find you'll do multiple layers, so that way it has more dimension in your blushing versus just sitting on the surface of whatever layer. You want it to meld between all the layers. I'm going around the wrist, switching my brush out to a little larger one, hitting the pads of the fingers just below the crease and above the main crease of the finger. On that fatty portion of the palm of the hand, I'm going to hit that a little bit. I'm not going to focus on doing every little crease. Hit that portion kind of between the top of the wrist and above the center of the hand. bringing it around through here. That looks cute. We're gonna apply the base right above the wrist through here on the thumb. Now we can switch back out to our pouncer, picking up our color. I'm gonna work on the elbow. I will bring it down the arm a little bit. You're gonna work with your blushing on the elbow, drawing it towards the inside of the arm and down the back of the arm a little bit. Drawing it around towards the front of the arm, bringing it around just like we did with the leg, going inside the arm above the crease, lightly going in there. And then we're going to switch out to our round brush and we're going to do the edge of the flange. It's pretty simple. Just remind yourself anywhere that you want to see areas that represent the blood flow being kind of pressed, that's where you want to focus on. Look at your own hand, look at photos. There's so many different references you can use. Look at your own children's hands, play around and do what's right for you. Gonna go around, go between the crease a little bit right through here. This is just our base, so we don't have to go crazy. Gonna bring that around. Drawing it towards the top of the shoulder. That's looking good. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. Those are usually the key areas I will start with. And then as we continue doing our layers, we'll continue building on our blushing so that we can emphasize those areas. Looks good. You're gonna move on doing your other arm, your other leg on your own. I will put this on our lovely little color map. Remember, this is the IRHSP Chrisman, just so we know. We got that on our color map, move that aside. You can use other colors, but this is the one color that I thought was really pretty that I wanted to use for this baby. The other one often used is the raspberry model. They're similar but slightly different. So this one has a little bit more blue in it, where this one has a little bit more red. So it's a little bit more cooler on the Chrisman. I think I'm saying that wrong. You can use, they do have a blushing, or you can even make your own blush color using your primary red. We can talk about that another time. All right, thank you guys for watching. I so appreciate all your support. Make sure you check out our membership. You click below the video. There'll be a join button. Check it out. There's a few different levels that have different perks to them. It helps a lot in supporting your artists and learn something new and have a little fun. Thanks again for subscribing, and if you haven't done that, make sure you do that as well and hit that little bell so you get notified when I upload our next videos. Thank you again for all your patience while I was a little delayed on getting this next video out, and thank you to Irresistibles for sponsoring today's video. Bye-bye!